Hello class and welcome to week 1 of Cognitive Psychology. This lecture video will serve the purpose as to reviewing your week 1 activities as well as reviewing your first assignment for the course. So let's jump right in. For this week you will have a few readings to do. Of course, by now if you hadn't had a chance to check out the syllabus, please do so. It lists off your activities that will be due for the course, as well as timelines, deadlines, and things like that. So make sure that you are checking that out. And if you haven't bought your textbook, please do so as well. So let's jump right in. For this week, you have a couple activities. So for the first one, I would like you guys to focus on is your readings for the week. So for this week, you'll have to read chapters 1 and 2. In your textbook, and that'll give you an introduction of cognitive psychology, and also chapter 2 will be a discussion of cognitive neuroscience. I won't be spending too much time going over the chapter materials this week because I really wanted to focus on providing you guys some information for your first paper. So in addition to their chapter readings, you have a couple supplemental articles to read and just look over. So you have PowerPoint chapters 1 and 2. And typically what I would do is review those for you guys in your lecture video. However, like I said before, I wanted to focus on your assignment for this week. You also have this lecture video to watch, and I will post that right here in this link for you guys to watch, as well as your discussion board post. So your discussion board is due every week. You'll have to at least your initial post would be 200 words or more, and as well as 2 responses to your classmates, and they have to be at least 50 words each. So just keep that in mind when you guys are posting your discussion boards. Let's see, and moving on. So the first assignment for this week is your essay. And what I will do is I will link a APA formatted paper for you guys to review in case you struggle with APA format. I am a stickler for APA format, so it's very important that you guys are following those guidelines. And as I mentioned before, I will link a APA formatted paper in your announcements, so you have that information and you are able to see what that APA formatted paper should look like. Many of you have had experience with APA format, but for those that have not, or if you've been using MLA, it'll be a great reference for you guys to look over. So for this first assignment, it's basically designed to help you examine your own experiences and faith and beliefs through the lens of cognitive psychology. And you'll get a little bit more information once you read through the chapter and you understand, of course, what the topic is all about. And this paper will need to be 3 pages long, and it will discuss your thoughts about cognition from a Christian perspective. And you're also welcome to include more of the components and topics and questions, such as, does your belief in Christianity align with the concept of psychology? If so, what do you mean, or what does that mean? And if not, why does that happen? So what I would like to see is, of course, APA formatted, but I would also like to see incorporating subheaders. And ultimately, I really like subheaders because they separate your paper. It allows me to see what your topic is for that section. So for instance, you're writing a paper on cognitive psychology, and one section it talks about the cognitive portion, or one talks about the psychology aspect. So having those different subheaders helps separate each paragraph, and it helps with the flow of your paper. And as I mentioned before, I will upload that APA formatted paper, and I'll highlight so you can see exactly what I'm talking about in terms of subheaders. Also, too, along with your discussion on how Christianity aligns with the concept of cognitive psychology, be sure to give some examples of how your faith does or doesn't align with cognitive psychology as well. Specifically, what are verses from Scripture that that you resonate with, or that stand out to you regarding cognition? What does the Scripture have to say about the brain and how our brains function? Who is one biblical character that stands out to you, or that's fascinating to you, and that you can evaluate from a cognitive perspective? What other characteristics of this person are you curious about? And what would you expect to learn about this person's cognitive function through the lens of cognitive psychology? So these are just a few of the areas of discussion that I would like you guys to touch on. And as I mentioned before, this is a 3-page paper, that not including your title page and your reference page. So I know many courses ask you to include abstracts. I do not require abstracts specifically for short papers or in general for this course. But if there is needing to be an abstract, I will let you know. But for this assignment, you'll be fine with just your title page and your reference page. And also be sure the references that you use on your reference page, please be sure to include them in your assignment and reference them properly. Let's see. So talked about references. Also, too, just to note, websites are not considered a valid reference or academic source. So just keep that in mind whenever you are looking for sources for your assignment. A great place for peer-reviewed journal articles is through the Cal Baptist database. And here's the link below so you guys can access that database. Sorry. So, moving on. So the grading rubric is attached for you below. And I always like to mention this to students because I know people would like to know where their points are going and things like that. So this gives you a breakdown of what exactly I'm grading on. So this rubric is separated into multiple points. So the first portion of the 40 points will go to your discussion on, does Christianity align with cognitive psychology? Your detailed discussion about your own personal beliefs, if you have any at all. And I do understand that some of you may not align with the Christianity faith, but if you can incorporate your own beliefs and your religion into that section, that'll be totally fine as well. Your use of scripture, so including either Bible verses or things like that to incorporate how you connect Christianity or your religion through the human brain and cognition. That will also be 40 points. You'll also need to discuss a biblical character. So you'll describe, of course, your biblical character and explain why that person is interesting to you and how it relates to that cognitive perspective. Details about the person's thought process, ideas, memory, anything cognitive specifically. And that is explored and discussed, and that will be 40 points. And following that is, of course, APA formatting, and it's not as much as the other components, but it's still quite a bit of substantial points for you guys, so it's 30 points. And of course, you'll have to have proper APA formatting. That's including citing your references, including a reference page, having a title page, your title page, including a running head, page numbers, things like that. And at least 3 peer-reviewed journal articles incorporated, not including your textbook. So if you do decide to use your textbook, that is an additional source. So you'd have 4 sources. The textbook is not included in those 3 references. So with that being said, I think that's pretty much all I want to talk to you guys about the paper. What I can do now is pull up the APA formatted paper and review that with you really quickly. So here's a copy of the APA formatted paper. As I mentioned before, I will post this in the announcement so you guys have this rubric so you guys can follow the APA formatted. So as you can see, this is a title page of the APA formatted paper. At the top, it includes the running head, as I mentioned before, as well as the topic in all bold letters, followed with the page number on the right-hand side. And you'll have your title of your topic right here, your name, and if you would like to, you can include California Baptist here under your name. This paper was written by Thomas Frederick, Yvonne Tai, and Scott Dunbar. They are all associate professors here at the university. So, as I mentioned before, this is what the abstract will look like, and this is where it will be if you are including that. But however, for this assignment, I will not be requiring you guys to use the abstract, but just for your future references in terms of what that looks like and how you can apply it to your assignments. So here we are. So this is the introduction of the paper. So here you'll have a lot of great information, and how it mentions this paper will describe the overlap between. I want you guys to focus on that whenever you are writing your introductory paragraph. Focus on what your paper discussed at the end of that paragraph, so it'll branch into what you are going to be discussing. Here's another component that I want to talk about. So whenever you are writing your references and your sources, whenever you have a source that you want to use exactly word for word, please remember to include that in quotation marks. As you can see here, this assignment has the source in quotation marks, and it has its reference of who wrote the paper. Now, if you're going to just be rephrasing and paraphrasing what the author in the article says, you can do this as well. Leave out the quotation marks, but just reword and rephrase what the article is stating, and then include the sources here. So Maslach and later 1997. So it'll be the author's names and the date that it was published, and that's it for your sources. And let's move on a little bit further. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk to you about. Okay, so here, this is what I was talking about in reference to subheaders. This is how you know the paper is taking the direction of talking about burnout in the Christian perspective. It's letting you know ahead of time where exactly the paper is going, so it creates a great flow. And even previously, before the sentence ends in this paragraph, it's discussing the main concerns and how burnout relates to that topic, leading into the next topic. So subheaders are really great for this. Let me see. The last thing I want to talk to you about, there's a lot of paper pages in this article, so I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Last thing I want to talk about is the reference page. So this is how it should look. Your references should be in alphabetical order, and followed up with an indentation on the second line. So this is exactly how the reference page should look. Your author's name, the date it was published, the title of the article, and where it was published. And you can find those within the database. It should have APA formatting, MLA formatting for your references. And that is pretty much it. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me at my email. If you need to schedule a phone conversation, shoot me an email and we can work something out that works with both of our schedules. And I'm available to discuss any assignments with you guys. And as I mentioned before, I will submit this to the announcements, so you have this APA formatted paper and any other additional information that you guys will need for this week. And that paper is due Sunday by midnight, so just so you guys have that information and you are ready and prepared for it. This is all I'm going to say, and I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.